Are you ready to lead with impact? Well, friend, you're in the right place. Today, you can join Carol Fairman and Dr. Guy Henry as they begin exploring what it means to lead with impact. So, pull up a chair, grab your coffee, a pen and paper, and get ready to have some deep conversations with Carol and Guy as they walk you through what it means to lead with impact. Oh, welcome everybody back to Lead with Impact. Can you believe this is episode number 2? And we're going to dive into leadership, influence, and how you can make a difference in the world. I'm Carol Fairman,
I'm Dr. Guy Henry.
and he's going to be your host and guide today on this journey towards discovering and developing the leader within you. So today's episode is really going to focus and launch our series on leadership. What is it? Why it matters? And how it shows up in your everyday life. You may not think you are a leader, but you are leading. People are watching, you are leading,
Mhm.
and you have been anointed and appointed to lead to the people around you. And so, whether it's a formal position, your mom, dad at home, in a small group setting, just in line at the grocery store, you are influencing the people around you. And really, that qualifies you as a leader. And so I know you fit one of those categories. So stick around with us today because Dr. Guy is going to walk us through understanding what those goals are, and we're going to spend the next few minutes picking those things apart so that you can see how you are being a leader. Go ahead, Guy.
Oh, okay. Well, and I guess I want to open just, literally leadership is not about the position or the title. It's really about, leadership is not really about, a position or a title. It really is about influence, and we all have that influence. It's how we develop that influence, that helps us become, leaders. And I want to, and over these next few episodes, I think we're going to talk, kind of some practical things,
Mm,
kind of some actionable items, and how
yes,
we can really learn how to develop the strategies to grow in our leadership, or if you want to say, our influence. Because one of the big misconceptions about leadership is that it's reserved, for a few
mm,
selected people,
right.
like a CEO or a manager or a pastor. And those, but those are titles.
Yes,
Leadership is a leader without a title. We don't, a title is the position we hold maybe as that level of responsibility or influence, but we all have influence. And so we actually are leaders before we have the title. And
exactly.
so, again, as you mentioned, whether it's our family, our friends, co-workers, where do we have that influence? In our community, our neighborhood.
Mm,
And so those practical things, that's what I think is part of a misconception. Leadership is very practical.
it
It's how
is.
we use us, our personality, to influence other people in how they can make a decision or how they might go one way or another. And man, we're doing that all the time, not only in what we say, but maybe
Exactly.
sometimes how we're acting.
Oh, you are not wrong. You are not, and funny, not funny, but you said that last night we're at this restaurant. We were exhausted. We were at like a local autumn fest type thing, and we're starving. And they bring out our food, and it is cold, stone cold. Nothing came out right. Who doesn't feed the babies first, right? So it just all the food was coming back bad, and this poor girl was just terrified. Like, oh, great, I got this big table. The food is bad. I'm not going to get a tip. And she was just so anxious and stressed. But see, what a beautiful opportunity to lead by example. So often, just out in our day to day, we see people so high strung, tense, ready to jump and pounce. And she was all
Yeah.
geared up for us to be angry about the food. But it was like, no, if you could just microwave this or package it to go, take it home and I'll take care of it later. We get to set the tone, right? And that's what we get
Mm-hmm.
to do as leaders. We're setting um, a natural tone of how this conversation is going to go. And then, I mean, that could have gone either way. I could have threw my plate back. You're not getting a tip. It's not her fault, right?
And
She's the
there would have been
waitress.
influence.
Exactly. And I would have, right, exactly. So I know it's an odd way to look at it because, as executive directors of nonprofit ministries and the things that we do, Guy, on the day to day, sometimes we might overlook those other opportunities that we get to
Hmm.
influence others. And so, how we handle that waitress, she's going to in turn go back and talk to the chef in the kitchen a completely different way instead
Yeah.
of running back there saying you just cost me a tip and why
Yeah.
is this, it could be, so your influence matters, your words matter, and you are placed specifically in a sphere where you get to lead and shine. And so it's
Yeah.
that the nature and that natural opportunity to lead. But the truth is, again, that we're all influencing and we're all leading, whether
Yeah.
we're out to eat or we're leading a team around the table.
That's an interesting analogy, although it is applicable in the fact that I know I'm sure most of us have all heard, the John Maxwell definition of leadership. Leadership is
Yes.
influence, nothing more, nothing less. And that is true because influence influences.
Yes.
What we influence, like you said, the waitress could end up going to the chef and so forth. But leadership, I'd like to add, is also creating a sense of direction in any
Yes.
scenario.
Yes.
It's about motivating others.
Hmm.
So leadership is motivation.
Yes.
Leadership, then when we do it with purpose, we begin to, collaborate with other people. So it's kind of like influences, and so when we influence others, we get to be the ones that ultimately determine what kind of leadership is that. Am I
Right.
motivating someone to work together? Am I
Exactly.
motivating someone to a common objective, or is it just about me? And when
Right.
it's about me, we begin to deteriorate the quality of our influence, the quality of our leadership. It's not about being
Exactly.
in charge. It's about making a difference. And what
Exactly.
is the difference that we make? And that we're doing that all the time. If we could just
Yes.
learn, train ourselves, with our behaviors and our attitudes, if
Yes.
we could train ourselves to be the one that's making a positive difference at that moment, we don't need the title.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's so true. The leadership part is happening. It's happening all the time. And it really is that choice of how are we engaging? How are we
Mhm.
connecting with those individuals to use our skills, right, to inspire the team to do a thing or to
Mhm.
inspire the waitress to get you the hot food that you're trying to pay for because you're starving, right? There's
Yeah.
that influence has so many different layers, and it's just I love that we're kind of peeling it all back and taking the opportunity to take a deeper look at these things and what is going to
Mhm.
make us a leader. What are the areas in which we are being called to lead? What areas are we being called to, whoa, it's time to reel it in because it's time to pass the baton to the next person to do that leading, right? There's so many
Mhm. Mhm.
facets to this. And so,
Well, we can have
um,
our CEO hat on, or our or
yes,
our our teacher hat on, but when that comes off, whoops, there's still another hat. There's the me hat, there's the husband hat, there's there's the neighbor hat.
you're not wrong.
So what, the mower breaks down while you're cutting the grass, and there's a couple ways to respond.
Right.
But if
Absolutely.
having influence sometimes is not so intentional, it's just happening.
It is.
And I think as people, if we could recognize that and adjust that in such a way, it shows leadership shows up in so many different aspects of our life. It's not those formal settings, I guess what I'm trying to say. It's just to
Yeah.
recognize, I may not have it together all the time. None of us do. But at some point in time, we are having an influence at that moment, or we're motivating or dismotivating. I don't know if that's even a word.
It
Uh,
is
you know,
today.
it is today, right? I don't want to unmotivate someone because of my bad attitude. So just to kind of put a priority on the fact that what is leadership? Leadership is that motivation, it's that
Yes.
influence, and it
Yes.
happens in the workplace, it happens in the family. Those are the teams. You said something about the team, but wow, we're surrounded by teams all day long.
Yes. All day
Our
long.
work team, our family team, whether we're serving somewhere in the church or just
Yes.
within our organization, even if we don't have that title,
That's
we
right.
we we are influencing within that team. Our co-workers, are actually a team.
Yes, absolutely. And we are definitely called to that. I mean, look at our master. King Jesus
Yeah.
came and he was the leader. He was the servant. He was
Hmm.
constantly taking on and off those hats and meeting people where they are in a way that they needed to be met. And that's just that mature leader knows when to take off the different hats and when to step back, when to lead, when to. My favorite part of being a leader, my favorite thing to do is to equip that person to just run with it, right? And just
Yeah. Yeah.
cheer them on. I love the opportunity to just say, what a beautiful idea. How can you make this work? How can I help you do X, Y,
Hmm.
and Z? And so,
Hmm.
really, just coming up alongside them, even in the little things with my grandkids, right? As
Oh.
they're learning to ride bicycles or say those first words, it's like, I
Hmm.
love being in the background letting people shine, if you will.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
it's just I hope we are going to get to the qualities of good leaders, right? One day, I hope,
Yeah,
because
right. Yeah.
what another facet of that. But
A thought I just had was, with the whole hat analogy, sometimes we have to learn those that actually do have a position when to take that hat off and not lead with that hat.
yes,
That makes
yes,
sense. In other words, you don't want to
yes,
take your CEO hat home and
no,
try wearing the CEO, the CEO hat at home because that's where you need to be the parent or the spouse. That's the hat you have to have, or with your among friends. How many times do we have influence or the opportunity to motivate our friends, even if it's sometimes just by our opinions? Well, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Well, that's influence.
yeah,
And before we know it, we might just say, well, I don't know if I agree with that. Well, we need to recognize what that could be communicating
oh
to
yeah,
our friends. And not to mention, I'll just throw this in here and let you run with it. Today we have another arena where we have influence. It's called social media.
oh yes,
And so
yes,
how are we doing with our influence? We can kind of overlook it that, it's just a digital space. It's just something, we do, or we're promoting something, whether it's a ministry or a business or
mm,
organization. But man, with
yeah,
those words that we write or the actions in which we make that video or that live, whatever the case
oh
may be, that's
yeah.
influence. You've just put yourself into a leadership position.
And you step into it and whoo, that just is a whole episode on its own, guy, for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm
Because
sure we can talk that
how
one.
often do we just too often we forget that we have to words matter, right?
Hmm.
And we will suffer the consequences of what we project out of our mouth, right?
Yeah.
And so too often we get out there and we're just clickety clickety with our opinions and we're not thinking. We're just it's off the cuff. It's not well thought out. We're hurting people and we didn't know we were
Mhm.
hurting people. What message are you conveying? Is it affirming of others? Is it lifting other people up? We want to be informative, right? We
Mhm.
want to educate and we want to encourage, but how are we doing that in that social media space? Too often, um, and not that I want to bring like COVID and things like that up because we know that's all in the past, but it sure has changed the boldness behind social
Yeah.
media because
Yeah.
so many people are just were sheltered at home and it was the only outlet. And then you've put something out there and then the next thing you know, you got to look people in the face and they want to question it. I mean, and you got to
Yeah.
answer to that. It's an
Yeah.
integrity thing, it's a character thing. Are you who you are on social as you are at the office and at home? All of
Mhm.
those things absolutely absolutely
Yeah.
matter. But I do want to,
What about the flip side for just a second? What about what
yeah,
we don't say? What if we're in a
a
meeting
mission.
and we have
Oh,
an opportunity to have a thought, share an objective, or instead we just kind of go with the flow? What if that piece of
mm,
influence, that piece of information that you did not share didn't
yeah.
get out? Guess what? You're influencing. You're
You're
leaving something that could be in a misdirection because you left out something
because you
that
left
was
it
most
out. And that Holy Spirit leading, we're like, oh, I don't want to be the one to say it. I don't want to be the devil's advocate, or I don't want to be the one that steers the ship the other way because everybody else is here and I'll go along. Again, a lot of times in leadership is lonely. It can be a very lonely place because our role as the leader of the ministry, of the home, or whatever, is to cast the vision and help
Mhm.
get people heading in that direction. And often, probably more often than not, it's the unpopular decisions that come from us because
Mhm.
we have to see all the big picture and be prepared for the good, the damage control, the what ifs, and really
Yeah.
think those things through. And it is so damaging, that omission, or oh, I'll just ride this one out, or I didn't get
Yeah.
enough sleep last night and I just don't feel like dealing with Susie today, because she's just going to say this, that, and I'll deal with it later. Yeah, that is not leadership, that's laziness.
Mhm.
We've got to rise up and be who God called you to be. He put you in that role for his purpose, his glory. Jeremiah 1:5, before I put you
Yep.
together in
Yeah.
that womb, he set you aside for this. So he's going to
Mhm.
take you through it. And we need to be reminded of that. Um, anyway, yeah. So I
Yeah.
got a lot of thoughts on that too. 'Cause
Well, that kind of leads into another thought that I was having in that um, the misconception. We have to be the leader that we are. It really starts with who am I?
yes,
Self-awareness. What kind of a person am I? Well, I'm not like that. Well,
yes,
that the myth that, well, Carol's just a natural born leader,
uh,
or so and so is just a natural
yeah,
born leader. Well, that's such a misconception. It's a myth. Some people may by nature have more charisma. They're more
yes,
outgoing,
I can
more
see that.
outspoken, but
Yes,
that doesn't make them any less or any more of an influencer. You
right,
know what I'm saying? It's easy to look at someone that maybe has a lot of charisma and that maybe you don't have. Well, they're just born that way. Well, they're meant to lead. I'm not
right,
meant to lead. And so we diminish the very gift that God has given us by being us. And
right.
sometimes not having how can I say this, not necessarily agreeing 100% with
Mm,
what my perspective may be, that angle that just makes it that much more.
right, right.
And so those assumptions can get us in trouble. Well, I'm not a natural born leader.
Right.
Um, the truth of the matter is leadership is skills,
Mhm.
behaviors, and attitudes, and all of those can be developed. We can develop
Exactly.
skills. We can
Yes,
develop our behaviors. We can certainly control our attitudes when we intend to do that. And
exactly.
we develop those, and what that does is it strengthens our natural abilities coupled
Yes.
with learning from our experiences. And then we
Uh,
begin to grow in our leadership.
exactly. Exactly. And I'm always going to bring it back to the Holy Spirit. I'm going to bring it back to Jesus. I mean,
Yeah,
come on,
yeah,
look at David. Look at Moses. Like, how hard did Moses fight with the Lord? And he's
yeah,
like, zip it, no excuses. I'm going to give you Aaron. Or,
yeah.
he's going to equip us. He's going to equip us. He called you to this, and he will equip you to develop those skills. You have to believe in yourself because he has called you to this role, whatever it is, and
Mhm.
especially the hard stuff because that's where he shines. That's where he gets to shine. The strength comes
Yeah,
from him. And so
right.
I love the dynamics, Guy, of bringing in um our spiritual giftedness, who the Father has
Mhm.
created us to be, our natural gifts and talents, and personality type dynamics, and how all these things are woven together for you to do the thing that he's called
Yeah.
you to do. And it's whether we're good at it, like I'm not, I was, I can be seen as the party happening everywhere. I am very introverted. I prefer, but when I'm in and I have to do the thing, I am showing up 100%. You were using the word charisma. I don't really see myself as a charismatic person. Um,
Mhm. But it's a
I
muscle. If you want to look at it that way, it's a muscle you can develop to use
exactly.
when you need to.
Right. And I look at you and I think, oh no, I gotta sit and have this intellectual conversation with Smarty Pants Dr. Guy. And I'm just a blah 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 chatty Patty Carol, and we've got Dr. Guy Henry, right? It's those dynamics, but it allows for such a rich discussion, right?
Hmm.
Because we're
Hmm.
uniquely made and we come from a male leadership, right? And female leadership, and it just comes together and it just
Hmm.
allows for this really solid, raw look at what leadership looks like
Hmm.
in ministry, in coaching, in parenting, in friendship, right?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just so
Yeah.
cool
Yeah.
how all these things just blend together. And so we just got to challenge ourselves from within to exercise those muscles. It's not an exclusive club. And I want you to, kind of expand on
Sure.
that a little bit, but it isn't an exclusive club because, well, go ahead and share about that a little bit, Guy. I love your perspective on this.
Well, you started touching on it actually, in that our natural gifts, the things that God has deposited in how that connects to our personalities.
Mm,
And leadership needs to be developed. Okay, so
yes.
we mentioned the muscle. We need to develop our leadership. And so how
Mm,
do we develop that leadership? We develop it by studying, we develop by learning, we develop by
mm,
growing, but it all starts with our self-awareness. It's one
right.
thing, I was thinking about this just recently. It's one thing if I think one of the biggest issues with the parable of the guy with the one talent is he was
Mm,
too busy looking at the guy with the two and the five to not realize what he
right.
had. Well, I'm not like
Absolutely.
that. I'm not like that. Yeah, but God has given you the gifts to be you, to influence only who you can
Exactly.
influence in the way. So being
Mm,
what I call self-aware to the degree of I have gifts. Let's start with just recognizing what are my strengths. Most
right.
times we don't often recognize our own strengths because we're so used to them, we
Mm,
don't see them as strengths.
that's so true. It's so
And
way.
but then recognizing our weaknesses. I'm big on because sometimes I think we're really good at recognizing our weaknesses.
Mm,
Paul said, "But I glory in my weakness." You know what I think? Why I think he said that? Because it helps me to recognize what my strengths are.
yes, I would agree with
Because
that.
my weakness is an equal and opposite of a force, if you will, of my
Mm,
strengths. So my focusing on my weakness, what I need to do is what does that represent on the strength side,
mm,
so that I can focus on the strength side of that weakness and develop that strength.
yes, that's
And that
right.
that takes that self-awareness. Who am I? Who's
Right.
God made me to be, rather than
Exactly.
trying
Yes.
to be like somebody else.
Yes. Because it's so easy to get caught up with I want to be like her. Why
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
I just
Well,
like,
we
oh,
learned
she
that we learned that back in high school, right?
it's like, she's this, she's that. Why does she get all this and that? And I'm over here struggle bussing, and it's the comparison trap is one of Satan's favorite tools, right? To
Yeah.
derail us from the thing that God is calling us to do.
Mhm.
And so it's just powerful. So that self-awareness guy is so important. And I loved also and this is, I'm going to be the one to bounce us 100 directions. But the reality is, you were talking about, we get to we shy away from our strengths, right? But when we tap into our strengths, it allows us to hire, in my particular instance, I hire to my weakness
Mhm.
into my
Yeah.
ministry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then it brings a more complete, package to move the vision of our ministry along.
Mhm.
So you have to be self-aware. We have to be
Mhm.
self-reflective of what we do well, what we know we need to be working those muscles on. But even taking the time to acknowledge who we are and then bring in people to prop you up, right? Because too
Mhm.
often it's like, well, I'll do it all and I'll figure it out. And,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
need the
we
help,
don't
but
have we don't have strengths in all of those areas, right?
exactly,
You
exactly.
mentioned
So
it in
we
terms of
have to.
hiring someone, but what about just the fact, what if we do have a level of responsibility, a title, if you were, we
Yeah,
need to be self-aware, wise enough with our leadership to pull this person in close to me
so
because
good.
they've got the strength that I don't have. So I have to
Exactly.
recognize it.
Yes,
And
and it's
okay, and
hard.
so and sometimes, of course, human nature, oh wow, why is he or she the special person? But most times it's just because we're all tools in God's kingdom. And he's going to use
Exactly.
us when the time is
Exactly.
right. And as a
It's so
leadership,
good.
we need to realize it's not, it's less of a privilege than it is a responsibility.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes,
And
that's so true.
so how does every joint going to supply? How is the body going to work together if we don't let the body that's better at doing what it does
That's
than
right.
we do? And that's
Yeah.
what creates a team.
Yeah, that beast of pride will get you every
Mhm.
time. And so we have to recognize that and again that self-awareness of what am I called to do? How am I called to lead? How am I in that leadership, who am I called to equip so that they may shine in the things that they are called to lead, right? It all works
Mhm.
together. And so it's this beautiful, continuous process of growth, right? It's just powerful. And it
Yes,
really does
yes.
start with that self-awareness that you were talking about. It's just, gosh, it's just good stuff, Guy. Good stuff today. I
Yeah.
hope everybody's keeping up with us because I know we got the ping pong ball going in a couple of different directions. And, um, but the bottom line, guys, is you are called. You are called to lead and serve in just the space that God has put you. And that's seriously, if it's out to eat at a restaurant and the waitress is having a bad day, how are you going to influence her? Are you going to further wreck her
Mhm.
day? Or are you going to lead her into a place of, sometimes the hiccups are going to come, but we're just going to press through. Or the
Mhm.
donation didn't come in. What are you going to do? Right? Are you going to pout and pitch a fit and fire people? Or are you going to, what can we do? Where can we grow? What are we learning?
Yeah.
Um, when the dryer breaks, what are we going to do about that? All those things, right? It doesn't matter your role, you have to take action,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
yeah. And be
And
the
and
best you
and
can in that role
in that
and,
role.
develop that leadership as we've been talking about. I know we're running out of
Yes,
time, but
I'm
it
sure.
by not stepping into our leadership, we're
Yes.
not only affecting other people's growth, we're affecting our
Yes.
own growth. Because as we step
Yes.
into it, we grow. And when
Mm,
we grow, so does our influence. And so we're motivating more
yeah,
people through our own growth. So our growth isn't just about me. Well, I need to
that's
be a
right.
better leader because the better leader that I become, the
Hmm.
more I can influence others to be better as well. It's not
Exactly.
just about me. Because remember, leadership is that not only that influence, but that ability to motivate someone else to do what they're called to do so they can succeed. And so as I grow, then I can help someone else even more be able to
Yeah.
succeed in their area.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. And so as we kind of wrap all this up, I really because gosh, there's just so much, and we really could unpack this further, but I want to kind of set you up a little bit for our next time because we're really going to come back very soon and we're going to start unpacking the four leadership styles, right? Let's set them up for that. And so what I want you to think about who are the leaders that you follow and that you learn from? Who are you learning from to develop your own skills? I want you to
Mhm.
step back, be self-aware. How are you equipping those you're called to lead? And I'm going to also like big homework now. You're going to be like, "Ooh, hope she doesn't come back tomorrow." But let's also identify what roles do you have? What are your leadership roles? Are you mom? Are you grandma? Are you wife? Are you a boss? Are you a small group leader? Are you the pastor? Right?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
are you the waitress that I was talking about yesterday from last night? Right? Those are different.
yeah.
So identify your roles, identify who you are looking to learn from, and be prepared to use those tools as we start unpacking those leadership styles. Because if we start talking about the different styles and you haven't identified the roles that you have,
Mhm.
you won't be able to use them, what we unpack together as effectively. And we really want to be in the space to connect and equip you in every area, really inside the house, outside the house, in your marriage, as a parent, as the
Mhm.
boss.
Well, yeah,
What
and
say you?
man, I hope we're not making it sound really complicated in the sense that, wow, we do have a lot of responsibility in
Yes.
our influence and how we motivate, others. But taking a step, like in what you're saying, is kind of take that first step and begin to recognize what kind of influence do I already have?
Yes. Yes.
Among
Yes. Yes. Yes.
friends, among the people in the church, among those my coworkers, within my business, within my organization, within my ministry.
Mm,
What are all of the different roles that I actually have that don't have titles, so that I can begin to
yes.
recognize all of those areas in which I have influence,
Right.
and we're going to connect this, the self-awareness to the four basic styles of leadership. And
Mm.
of course, we're not a simple ABCD kind of a person, but
No.
understanding where those strengths are will help us
Yes.
identify that's why I feel comfortable in this kind of a role and not so comfortable
Exactly.
in this role. We're going to find out it's actually part of our own style of leadership and influence.
Yeah, no, that's so 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 good. I know I'm really excited about this and how we're going to just together really figure out how to take the lead, how to lead with that impact, and more importantly, we're
Right.
going to get to do it together, right? We're going to grow together and
Yeah.
as a community as a whole. And so we're just excited that you're getting to know us and we're getting to know you. And you can reach us, at carolfairman.com or Dr. Guy Henry.com. You can email us, you can find us on social, but we want to connect with you. We want to help you be effective right where you are in whatever it is that you got going on. And so reach out to us. And if there are things you want us to kind of talk about, because those of you that know me, I'm in nonprofit, I'm in health and wellness, I'm a grandma, all these, we wear all these hats, and Guy is a missionary and a nonprofit leader, and he's out teaching team building and so many other things, and we're in and out of speaking at churches, right? So we come together with all of these things that we've grown through, and we just want to take your hand and walk with you and help you develop your potential so that you too can lead with impact. I'm
Yeah.
Carol
And I
Fairman. Oh, are
And
you
Dr.
good at?
Guy Henry. Yeah, I was going to add one more thing. And it doesn't matter, right? You may already be a very influential leader,
Yes,
but we can still grow in that leadership.
we
So I
have
challenge you
to.
to see, look into your life to see what there is that's you may be right now confronting as an issue, as a
Yes,
problem, as a challenge. Don't see
yes.
it as something defeating you. See it as your opportunity to grow and strengthen that area
Oh,
of leadership in your life.
so good, Guy. So good. So good. Okay. Well, I'm Carol Fairman.
And I'm Dr. Guy Henry, and this is Lead with Impact. Hope you all enjoyed a little bit of this conversation.
Absolutely. And we will see you next time.